So here's obviously the big horrific story of the day, folks. As you know, as escalation is continuing in the Middle East with Israel, Palestine, and now entering to Lebanon, which I was always told it was supposed to stop the people that did October 7th, but that is not the true intentions of this event. That is not the true intentions of the Zionist movement. That's not the true intentions, because if you hear the rhetoric, October 7th has nothing to do with this. And this is what I've been saying for a long time. It has nothing to do with October 7th. It's nothing to do with Hamas. If you look into how this originated, you know that this was a definite ploy done by Netanyahu, done by a warlord, done by credences within his cabinet to further extend Israel's geopolitical powers. And they're cultivizing other nations by blackmail, intelligence, deception, into forcing them to accept the fact that they are now brutalizing other nations outside of their defense, outside of defending people from, so it was supposed to be Hamas, but now they're going after Hezbollah. So this is from Time magazine, that they're stating that Lebanon was rocked by a second wave of device explosions as Israel declares new phase of war. I thought it was supposed to be a defense mechanism. I thought it was supposed to help the people of October 7th. You ever notice that they don't get media attention anymore? How all of a sudden that just went away just quickly like that? They don't talk about the survivors or any of the... Oh, maybe because the survivors are actually against Israel now. Maybe that's it. So, Time magazine says walkie-talkies and solar equipment. Let me enlarge this a bit bigger here. So it says walkie-talkies and solar equipment in Beirut and other parts of Lebanon on Wednesday in apparent second wave of attacks targeting devices a day after pagers used by Hezbollah blew up, state media and officials for the militant group said. At least 20 people were killed and more than 450 wounded in the second wave, the health minister said. The attacks, which were widely believed to be carried out by Israel targeting Hezbollah, but have also killed civilians, have hyped fears that the two sides' simmering conflict would escalate into an all-out war. Which again, they'll tell you differently, but if you look at the Zionist rhetoric, you look at that cult, they are deeply entrenched of getting us to World War III. They're deeply entrenched. They want to be the superior outcomes of a full-out attack on the rest of the world. That is how they view it. That is how their psychological mind, their psychological trigger is putting them as much in advance of World War III as possible. Even though they keep lying to you and saying that this is defense, this is how we're preventing another October 7th. We want to care for the people that were captured on that day at the concert. It has nothing to do with that. They want a full-out World War III escalation. Speaking to Israeli troops on Wednesday, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said, "We are all at the start of a new phase in the war. It requires courage, determination, and perseverance. We made no mention of the exploding devices, but praised the work of Israel's army and security agencies, saying the results are very impressive." In Wednesday's attack, several blasts were heard at a funeral in Beirut for 3 Hezbollah members and a child killed by exploding pagers the day before, according to Associated Press journalists at the scene. An AP photographer in the southern coastal city of Sudan saw a car and a mobile phone shop damaged after devices exploded inside of them. A girl was hurt in the south when her home's solar energy system blew up, the state news agency reported. The new blast hit a country still rolling with confusion and anger after Tuesday's pager bombings, which killed at least 12 people, including 2 children, and wounded 2,800 others. The second wave also deepens concerns over the potential indiscriminate casualties caused in the attacks, in which hundreds of blasts went off wherever the holder of the pager happened to be, in homes, cars, and at grocery stores and in cafes. often with family or bystanders nearby. Wow. I guess it's a bad time to mention that this story is sponsored by Chevrolet EVs. And all joking aside, that is something that does... I do think about. I do think about in all seriousness, the more that we get more technologically advanced in our smart devices, our smartphones, our watches, our televisions, our you have smart refrigerators now. All this technology that has microchips and the compatibility to connect with State Departments, and knowing that anyone from the Mossad to the CIA to the NSA to Department of Homeland Security to CISA, any of these agencies could have the potential to do something like this or worse. It does scare me. It does a bit scare me, knowing that there's that many devices out there that could easily be connected to an agency that, if you don't step into line, this could happen. It is a scary thought to mention, but not as scary as knowing that this actually happened to innocent civilians. But again, they don't care. They don't care. Israel does not care. Again, their whole purpose, the whole reason October 7th even happened, was to engage in a full-out war, to escalate the tensions so that they had a reason, they had an opportunity to go into Palestine. So they had an opportunity to attack Lebanon. So they had an opportunity to make rhetoric to go after Iran. And that's going to escalate further and further and further and further, and it's never going to end until we cut off the supply and demand of militia going into this country. That is what we have to do. That is what we have to do. We have to stop out the assistance from allied nations that's allowing this to escalate to World War III. So, this is obviously devastating. Anyone that has a soul, anyone that has a heart, could see how deeply just crazy and barbaric this is. And knowing the fact that they could have easily went through anyone's device. Obviously they went through pagers because I believe pagers don't use the cellular frequency. They use radio. That's why doctors and people that don't have cell phone access use pagers. But again, think about that. Think about the fact that your electronic device, where you're watching this now, has connections to agencies that have the potential to do this. I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but that is something genuinely sincereful that I think about when reading stories like this. That if the Mossad and Israel can do this to Lebanon, who's to say that any other agency can do this to anybody? If you step out of line, if you don't agree with the status quo, you say something indirect that doesn't favor the oligarch establishment, who's to say this could happen to us? So, deeply concerning, but there are some people that are evilly enjoying this, let's just say that. So, I go to Glenn Greenwald, and he did an update on System Update about this, and he's got some interesting insights on kind of the reactions you're getting from all sorts of people. Listen to this.
Now, some of the reactions from Israel's most fanatical supporters in the United States are so telling. Even as they were hearing that the casualty count was in the thousands, even as they were hearing that it injured or severely or killed young children, they couldn't hide their giddiness, their glee. They're so happy, especially over the psychosexual part of this attack, namely that, Hezbollah fighters had their testicles blown off. This was a major source of celebration from these kind of deranged supporters of Israel who often express their views in that manner.
I mean, having their testicles blown off. Now we know why Tim Waltz is supporting this. I mean, from one person that clearly, I'm not trying to use this smear, but I will, who clearly doesn't have a set of balls, to laughing about the fact that other people in other nations are losing their balls. What a friggin' jackass that guy is. I mean, I have never met anyone, any man whatsoever, whether being gay, straight, whoever you are. I've never seen a adult man be so excited about tampons. Not even ladies are that excited about tampons. But Tim Waltz is. I just don't understand that. I don't understand that. That'd be like having a woman be so excited about prostate exams. You don't want to do it. You prefer not to do it, but you have to do it. Like, no one's excited about it. Jeez.
Hear from Eric Reiner, who is a very wealthy hedge fund manager, although he is an American citizen, born in the United States. This is what he said, quote, "We were inside of Hanya's bedroom," referring to the killing of the Hamas leader in Israel, "and now we are inside of Nasrallah's pants," referring to the Hezbollah leader. So we were inside of his bedroom, and now we're inside his pants. Now, the disturbing psychosexual imagery of that is obvious. No one needs to point it out. But the question I had, and I asked, I haven't gotten an answer from him yet, is congratulations. Who is the we in these two sentences? You're talking about an American citizen who apparently considers the we, not his own country, not the American government, that he is subject to and supposed to be loyal to as a citizen. But apparently Israel is someone that he considers we. I think, obviously, there are a lot of American Jews and American evangelicals who think that same way, even though under this new law that the House passed, that the Senate is preparing to pass, one of the prohibited ideas that would be constituted as anti-Semitism under this new free speech attack to protect Israel, as we've covered when the House passed it.
I also just want to add, too, when he adds we, are you referring to yourself fighting in this war? Because as a hedge fund boy, clearly you're not on the front lines of any of these wars. You'll pledge allegiance to it. You will definitely support it. You will vindicate anybody else that challenges that war, but you would never, ever fight yourself, which is what I call a lot of these Zionists out for. That's what I call out Ben Shapiro and Nikki Haley and all these other goons that they scream the loudest for engagement in war, but yet they're too cowardly, they're too much chicken shit to actually take up a rifle and do it themselves. Coming from the people that say we gotta, pull up your bootstraps and solve your own problems, people aren't there for you. Well, what about you? What about you? Lebanon's not attacking me. I'm not worried that Hezbollah is gonna track down here in Canada. But apparently in your psychotic mind, they're always around you. So shouldn't you be solving your own problems?
Is one of the ideas that is now off limits that would be instantly deemed anti-Semitic is to suggest that any American Jews have equal loyalty to or more loyalty to Israel than they do to the United States, even though so many of them say exactly that, admit that, make that so clear. Here is a official account of the Israeli war room, and they simply posted the phone emoji, obviously taunting and celebrating the people who they blew up today. Here's Ben Shapiro speaking of American Jews.
What lazy people. They can't even write a sentence, not even a word. Yeah, just go right to emoji. That's what the kids are into.
Jews who have at least as much loyalty, if not more so, to Israel. I'm going to say that while it's still legal. And he went on Twitter and said, quote, breaking, Hezbollah has been forced to rename itself Hezbollah after losing all of its balls. So you can kind of see the nature of this attack and the reason why it's arousing.
Again, coming from the ballless wonder of Ben Shapiro, the weasel, who screams the loudest about how we all need to engage in support of Israel, but yet sits behind a desk in Tennessee and does jack squat. Like, what are you doing then? What are you doing in part to support your people? Meanwhile, the United States is crumbling. North America is crumbling because of our endless war spending. What are you doing in part to support your people over there, not the people over here? You know, your friends, your family, your neighbors in America. What are you doing to treason off that to another state?
So many of Israel's most fanatical supporters, even if you think it's a justified attack, knowing that there were so many civilians who were injured or killed, should, in any decent person, preclude this kind of celebration. But these people are the opposite of decent. Speaking of whom, Konstantin Kitz, who is a British and Jewish supporter of Israel, to say, put that mildly, said, quote, "What use is 72 virgins when you have no balls?" The longtime American neocon Eli Lake, also a fanatical supporter of Israel, said, "Can't talk right now, my pager's blowing up." So they were having a lot of fun with this show of strength, and obviously they identify very much with Israel. Even though they're not Israeli citizens, nominally they're citizens of the US or the UK. It's probably one of the most deranged people, but I don't even think he's more deranged. I think he just hides it less, is the actor Michael Rappaport, who has become one of the most obnoxious and vocal, attention-seeking supporters of Israel. And as the news proliferated today that there were thousands of casualties, including children killed, this is what he went onto his phone and then social media to do.
Beep, beep. Beep, beep. Beep, beep.
All right, these people are just deranged. They're degenerates to respond to violence, including the death of.
And if you like more of Michael Rappaport's stand-up comedy, you can visit him touring around all the dumpsters behind KFC locations across America. Because that's how successful his career is. And that is why he's selling so harshly, selling the entire world out to the Israeli state. Because that's just how god-awful Michael Rappaport is. The fact that he didn't even say, oh, beep, beep, and then laughed like the Joker. You know, it shows how demented, psychotic those people are. And like I said, I called them out. I am, you know, I call it out. Because they go relentlessly to the point that even people that don't want to mention about this, even people that are, you know, kind of off their own, they know about the war that's going on in the Middle East, but they just want to, you know, carry on with their lives, figure out how to pay for groceries and their bills and cost of living and inflation, which is what we should be discussing constantly. Nobody's mentioning about that. But even that, they attack those people. Or they attack the Hasidic Jews that aren't defending this war, aren't defending Israel's actions. They know that their government is a warlord, tyrannical force, that Benjamin Netanyahu, who's not even really Jewish himself, he's Polish. He just changed his name for stage reasons. I guess that's his connection to Hollywood. And they're not supportive of this. They're calling this out. And they're saying that's damaging the Judaism faith. It's ruining their whole religion prospects, knowing that Zionists have taken over and conflated Judaism to their evil cults. And what Zionism is doing is actually anti-Semitic. They're the ones that are defaming and destroying the true intentions of Jewish faith. It's absolutely horrific. And there's so many people on the side of this evil cult and laughing and thinking this is such a great deed and oh my God, how hilarious it is. when they don't even realize what they are doing to themselves. And, you know, it's gotten so crazy that even Dave Portnow, who I don't know if people know who this guy is. Dave Portnow runs that TikTok channel, the YouTube short show, Barstool. And he does a lot of those pizza reviews, which I don't watch frequently because anytime he does a pizza review, honestly, it makes me hungry. So I'm not going to watch. I'm not going to constantly watch pizza reviews for that reason. But I, you know, from that, I thought he was a pretty decent person. I think he's a pretty decent guy, you know, just a regular run-of-the-mill, you know, influencer, personality, media persona, and broadcaster. But I understand now that Dave Portnow, after looking down this, Dave Portnow is deeply in the Zionist trench. And here's just an example of it. So he retweeted the New York Post reporting the explosion by the pagers. And Dave Portnow says, "Can't wait to watch when this becomes a spy movie. This is the craziest counter-terrorism plot I've ever seen." Yes, we're at that point where we're trying to figure out which is good terrorism and which is bad terrorism, as opposed to terrorism, which is, by definition, when individuals commit an act of violence towards a large group of people for political or religious purposes, which is what Israel is known of doing. They are doing terrorism to say they're stopping terrorism. It literally is like a flashback to the early 2000s after 9/11. It's us versus them. Everybody over there is an evil, sick bastard. And that's why we got to take them all down. Well, what if there's some good people? Oh, they're just all evil. Just take them all down. Well, aren't you doing terrorism to them after you just admit that, after saying that they commit terrorism to us? Aren't you just doing the thing that you claim they're doing to us? They can't comprehend that. They can't comprehend that. So I responded and retweeted his statement here. It says, I said, even the writers to 24 wouldn't do the sinister plot. I'm pretty sure Kiefer Sutherland wouldn't even agree to doing a show like that. Come on. However, a guy known for pizza takes can give you the 411 on what terrorism is okay. Which is exactly what he's doing. He's justifying an act of terrorism because it's us. Because it's the good guys. So if it's the good guys committing huge mass murder, we're considered good. We're considered defending people. But if it's people that we disagree with or have different cultures or look funny and act in a different way, then that is definitely terrorism. And it's just amazing that we truly do live in a principleless society where we're at the point where we're doing mental gymnastics to define what's good terrorism, what's bad terrorism, as opposed to, you know, actually stopping terrorism as a whole, stopping terrorist acts as a whole, understanding that by verbiage, by definition, that what we're doing to counter terrorism is an act of terrorism. And which is why we need to stop these warlords from committing the acts of terror against their own citizens, against other people and other nations. Because that's what Netanyahu's doing. That's why people, even in Israel, are protesting against this government, because they know that this has nothing to do with October 7th. They know this has nothing to do with the hostages. They know. Even people inside Israel that have been propagandized throughout this time to think that Palestinians are a bunch of animals, even they know how disgusting, how soulless, how empty, how vile their government really is. And our governments are committed to it because we're getting a paycheck afterwards. This is an investment for them, just like Ukraine, just like any other war we partake. It's nothing to do with defense, folks. It has nothing to do with counterterrorism. What we are doing is an act of terrorism to keep our hegemony afloat. That's what we're doing. That's what all these wars are about. It's about business. It's nothing to do with defense or democracy or any of the bullcrap that they spew out of their mouths. It's all about the money. It's all about corrupt politics, making a huge big bang buck off your death and disparity. And that is why all these people that scream the loudest for war will never actually fight the wars themselves. That's how it shows how chicken shit they really are. I'm sorry, but it truly does show how chicken shit they really are. At least back in, 1776, the Revolutionary days, George Washington fought with the people. At least that happened. At least back in those days, those leaders actually fought with people to defend their country. What are our leaders doing? Nothing. Nothing. But they're telling you that you have to be supportive of this. Otherwise, XYZ. Otherwise, you're considered the worst. Otherwise, you're considered a traitor. You're considered an anti-Semite. You're the worst person imaginable. Do you want the terrorists to win? Again, just rehashing all the old stereotypes of the early 2000s. If only we had, like, the Dixie Chicks get banned again because they're not supportive of Israel. It's literally just absolutely baffling. And you have people like Michael Rappaport and Ben Shapiro and all these other just insidious cowards that are cheerleading the death and destruction of innocent people. And all I could say is, imagine if it happened in your backyard. Are you gonna cheerlead the same thing? Are you gonna cheerlead the same thing? The same people that cry, thoughts and prayers after a school shooting? Are you now going to turn the verbiage and champion the shooter that killed children? No. Because obviously you have some sort of soul. I would hope so. You have some sort of morale. But obviously not for this.